Hi, Governor. Building off a question from, I think, Moira a couple questions ago, on your 43% budget cut proposal, can you give us some more examples of your running the New Mexico agencies, how you cut spending there and improve services, and how you would translate that ethic into, once you're president, how would you run those agencies with almost half the money? Does that help?
Well, so the example that I cite is that Medicaid in New Mexico was absolutely runaway. So I had an insurance policy as governor of New Mexico. We did the math. What if we gave every single citizen in New Mexico that was on Medicaid, and this is health care for the poor, what if we gave every Medicaid recipient in New Mexico my health insurance policy as governor of New Mexico and paid the same amount of money that I was paying as governor of New Mexico to have a health insurance policy? Would we really save hundreds of millions of dollars, and would we actually be able to deliver better health care? We did. I think we could have taken that many steps further if I would have been able to oversee complete delivery of health care to the poor without any strings, without any mandates from the federal government. I believe that I could have overseen that with 43% less money. I think without exception that we can do this is based on my experience as governor of New Mexico. I privatized half the state's prisons, and I know there's a lot of criticism about privatizing prisons, but I did this, and apples to apples comparison, same goods and services for 2/3 of the cost. To me, that's good government. That's what government should be focused on, is better delivery of goods and services. And in my experience, this is very, very much something that can be accomplished.
Julian. Yay!
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. This is a great honor. So yeah, I am definitely a supporter of you and Dr. Paul, and I consider myself a free market advocate. I was wondering what your stance on Pagovian taxes were, like taxes on negative externalities, like smoking, things like that.
Well, I am advocating the fair tax. I am advocating throwing out the entire federal tax system. So if we enacted the fair tax, now this would be outside of what might be state and local taxes, but using marijuana as an example, marijuana would be subject to a 23% fair tax, 23% consumption tax. The fair tax, for those online right now, check it out, fairtax.org. I think it really is, as the name implies, it's fair. The more money you make, the more fair tax you'll pay, the more money you'll be incentivized to save. So the fair tax does away with income tax, corporate tax, withholdings from your payroll check, replaces it with a 23% consumption tax, which should end up to be cost neutral over a very short amount of time, because right now all goods and services theoretically contain a 23% tax that when you take away all existing federal tax, you're going to reduce the cost of a can of Coke from $1 to 80 cents. You're going to pay the 23%. It's going to end up to be cost neutral. That's the theory, and I happen to think that would actually take place. When it comes to American competitiveness abroad, if we can reduce the cost of goods and services by 23%, that's the answer to China. I'm a free market guy. Hey, tariffs, that's not something that we should be talking about at all. What we should be talking about are ways to make us competitive. I think the fair tax does that. Sean Mulville writes, Governor, I'm a lifelong Democrat. You'll be my first Republican vote. Can you estimate the cost of federal pot laws? By legalizing marijuana, I think the estimate is a $20 billion savings. That would be a combination of law enforcement, the courts, and the prisons redirecting their resources and the amount of money that would be raised from a tax on marijuana, which is estimated to be about half of that $20 billion. Michael.
Hi, Gary. How you doing?
Great.
Couple of quick questions. I'm really troubled by two things. One of them is the Defense Authorization Act that passed the Senate and the House and now is in conference committee and is headed to Obama's desk for signature, that basically allows the government to use the military to incarcerate any civilian in the U.S. or abroad indefinitely with no legal recourse. What are your thoughts on that as a candidate? And the other question is, how would you move to mute the impact of the Citizens United decision and what has basically evolved into a point where all three branches of government are compromised by the influence of money in politics? Really like you. I'm a lifelong Democrat, and you'll be my first vote as well. And I changed registration to be able to vote for you in the primaries.
Well, the first part, the detainment of any U.S. citizen without charge, that's why we fought wars in this country. That's why this country was established. So I would veto that legislation, and I hope, based on my experience, that you would recognize I have no aversion at all to vetoing legislation. And then the Citizens United. I think this is having unintended consequence, which are these super PACs that are being allowed to run outside of the expenditures from the candidate, really uncontrolled. I think when it comes to campaign finance reform, I think the number one thing that's needed is just 100% transparency, which does not exist today. And I've said this tongue-in-cheek, I'll say it again. I think politicians should be required to wear jackets similar to NASCAR drivers with logos commensurate with the size of their donations on their jackets. And then you can look at the candidate very quickly and determine that, ooh, this is General Motors or whomever.
Pfizer.
Very good. Thank you very much. We love you here in Colorado.
Thank you. Raul, would you please run for Senate to raise your national profile? Raul, I'd be a terrible senator. I think that Congress remains a job that is commensurate on bringing home the bacon. And bringing home the bacon is the fact that we're borrowing and, for the most part, printing money to cover the 43 cents more per dollar that we're spending that we're not generating. So I don't want to contribute to the problem, and in my opinion, the Senate and the House are the culprits behind where we're at. So, Guy, we can see all of you on the camera. How's it going?
Welcome, Libertarian Party, Houston, Texas. All right.
All right.
Yeah. Governor Johnson, if fair tax passes, how can you be 100% certain that subsequent legislation passed by the Congress would not waive the requirement for the repeal of the 16th Amendment?
I don't think, I suppose you can't guarantee that, but that is part of the proposal, and that it's a very important part of the proposal. But there are no guarantees. That should be part of it, which is getting rid of the repealing the 16th Amendment so that we cannot have an income tax, that being part of the equation for the fair tax. Thanks. Alvin.
Oh, hi, Governor. I live in UCLA, and I rent an apartment here, and I have a really nice Gary Johnson 2012 banner hanging on my patio. But my new property owner tells me that I have to take it down because it's not commonly accepted patio use. And he won't give me permission to have any kind of political banner. Would you come down here and talk to him?
You know, Alvin, thank you for putting up that banner, but I understand those rules, and if you know, in the notion of equality, if everybody in the building is having to comply with the same rules, that's an okay thing. If there are other banners out there and you're not allowed to fly the Gary Johnson banner, but there can be other banners that fly, then that's not equality, and that's where we have an issue. But thank you for flying the banner.
Well, how do you think this relates to corporations having more speech than me as an individual? Like, if I'm not allowed to hang a large banner saying what I believe politically, how does that affect the speech of individuals?
Well, no, I understand the notion that as an employer, that as long as I have a rule that says no one can put a bumper sticker on a company vehicle, then that's okay. As opposed to well, if you're not going to do that, then you're going to have to allow for everyone to have a banner, and it's either all or none. But it's equality at the base of the decision needs to be equal treatment, and I think that's what we're really concerned with. That's what I'm really concerned with. I just want to be treated the same.